Hi, beautiful souls. It's Tan back here again today with you on this astrology, human design, and Gene Keys channel. And I'm here today with Sarah, a wonderful astrologer on the Tan Astrology Team. And some of you guys may have already gotten a reading from her. But today, Sarah is going to be talking to us about the famous and infamous fixed star Algol. But before we get started, I'd just like to remind you guys that if you are currently looking for a gift for your loved ones this holiday season, we do have gift cards available for you to purchase for your loved ones. And it's only available this holiday season. It will end at the end of the year. And these gift cards you can give to your loved ones. And we on the Tan Astrology team will be offering either a birth chart reading or a human design reading as a gift. So if you're interested in that, if it feels right for you, then just head over to our website and you can get more information on there, or you can send me an email to get more information there as well. So a good opportunity for you to be Santa Claus for your loved ones this year. All right. And without further ado, the reason we're here today is to know a little bit more about Algol. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Sarah, and see what you have to say for us today.
Awesome. Thanks, Tan. And today we're going to be talking about the fixed star Algol. So I want to talk a little bit about the way that Algol appears in the sky and why it was significant to the ancients, and then move into the mythology and maybe some real life examples. So before we begin, I want to mention my personal Algol placement because it's pretty significant. So I have Algol conjunct my Venus, my natal Venus, exactly. She's at 26 degrees as well. And that's in my 12th house. So yeah, that's my placement. If you could have a bad Algol placement, I have it. And I don't feel like it's bad. So that's
Right.
where we're kind of trying to debunk this whole idea of Algol being this demon, as she has been regarded as in the mythology.
Yeah, to add to that, just for the viewers, that Algol is at 26 degrees of Taurus and it's
Yeah.
a fixed star. So in case, if people are not familiar with that, it's not going to be changing, very much depending on each person's chart. So it's fixed. It's always going to be around 26 or 25 degrees of Taurus, depending on the year that you're born, right, Sarah? It wouldn't really move much more than that.
Yeah. Now, however, if you're using sidereal, it's 2 degrees Taurus. So that's
Mm-hmm.
something worth mentioning too for all those that prefer sidereal. But for our purposes, we're talking about tropical tropical um, version of Algol. And so that's 26 degrees Taurus, and it's not going to move. It's a fixed star, but it's actually a special fixed star, as I've learned. So um, Algol is what's called a variable star, and she blinks. So it's actually a triple star system where there are 3 stars together. It's Beta Persei, AA1, AA2, and then I think just regular Beta Persei. So so as I was saying, the Algol is a triple star system. It's a variable star, which means it kind of looks like it's blinking in the sky, which is how it became significant to the ancients. They realized this star was kind of at least changing in its brightness, and they could tell because they had these people called hour watchers that would just kind of sit out and watch the stars. And because
Mm.
Algol goes through this cycle, this orbit, so frequently, it's every about 3 days. It's observable and apparently to the naked eye, although I can't see that far away. But yeah, the ancients may have had a better visual, especially without light pollution. But what I want to show you is what a binary star system looks like so that you can see how the blinking happens. So you'll see um, usually the case is that the larger star will block out
Oh.
the smaller star. But Algol is a little different. There's something called the Algol paradox, where it's actually the star with the least mass is the bigger star. And so it's actually, from what I understand, it's the smaller looking star that has the greater mass that blocks out the
Mm.
light of the larger star at some point. But either way, there's this variable star system that's kind of revolving, like you can see in that video from Wikimedia.
Mm-hmm.
And the graph below just kind of shows the intensity of that brightness and how
Mm.
it can be measured now with our
Mm-hmm.
science.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, that's where Algol is located. That's kind of how she became very significant and relevant in the Egyptian mythology. So that's where we're going to go next.
The myth.
Yeah. So there's this calendar called the Cairo calendar, and a group of scientists kind of investigated the work of this Cairo calendar. It was the Egyptian calendar, basically. And they were trying to find out how Algol could be linked, I guess. I mean, I think there's several things they're looking for on this paper, but what they find is the star Algol was referenced in two Egyptian myths. One is the destruction of mankind. In this legend, Ra sends the Eye of Horus to punish the rebellious mankind. And then in the second legend, it's that Horus and Set contend for the kingship of Egypt after Osiris is killed by Set. So there's two myths of like good and evil, dark and light. And the case is that light always overcomes the dark in this myth. So that's the two different Egyptian myths. And basically they linked the star to that myth because of the blinking. So they were able to see in this Cairo calendar, they've got this star that they're referencing, and it's something that they're concerned with because it's one of the brightest stars that blinks like this. So then we move into the Greek mythology that kind of more of us are familiar with. If you have any kind of familiarity with Algol at all, you probably know she's associated with Medusa. The Gorgon, the head of the demon, or the Satan's head. So she's Ras al-Ghul for Arabic, and then she is Rosh Hasatan for Hebrew folklore. So in every single iteration of any story from this time period, she is, a demon. So even in English, we refer to her as the demon star or the head of the Gorgon. So she was actually a Gorgon, said to be the only mortal Gorgon, which was why she was able to be killed. So now let's
What's a Gorgon? Maybe you could clarify that a little bit.
Yeah, I looked into this a little bit, and I saw that there's three sisters that are Gorgons, and I saw their parents' names, but mythology in Greek just gets so weird. So as far as I could just tell, there's just like three sisters that are Gorgons. I think there's probably more Gorgons. But I'll tell you, the name actually, it says Gorgons occur in the earliest examples of Greek literature. There's three sisters. And it says that their hair is made out of venomous snakes. However, that story has been debunked, where it wasn't the case that actually Medusa got the snakes for hair because of her punishment from Athena. So Gorgon itself means, the name derives from the ancient Greek word gorgos, which means grim or dreadful, and appears to come from the same root as the Sanskrit word garjana, which means a guttural sound, similar to the growling of a beast. So it's possibly it could be onomatopoeia. Gorgon could just mean like rough, or something like that.
Right.
So it's weird in that way. I didn't get too far into the etymology. I had already gone down so many rabbit holes that you know about. So I had to leave the research for a little bit. So what we know about the story of Medusa, there's actually a couple of variations of this story. But keep in mind that Algol, this fixed star, is in Taurus. And of course, it remains in Taurus. It's in the domicile of Venus. It's in Venus's home and Venus's temple. And so that's very important. So basically what happened was, we'll start with the tamest version of this myth, I think, where Medusa is this beautiful woman. And this is going to come up a little bit later too, but Medusa is this beautiful woman, and she's kind of boasting about it, bragging about it, and this makes Athena angry. And she then turns her into this beast that has snakes for hair, green skin, and tells her, everybody that you look at is going to turn into stone. Then there's the story of Poseidon and Medusa having an affair inside the temple of Athena. And Athena is mad because, well, one, Medusa's supposed to be celibate, and two, this happened in her house. And so because she can't punish Poseidon, she punishes Medusa only. And the same curse is applied. So she turns people into stone, and she has snakes for hair, and she's a.
Is this the same story as the first story, or is it like it's a different one?
It's a little bit different because in the first one, it's just she's kind of like gallivanting around, like, I'm so pretty, I'm just as pretty as Athena, and Athena is like,
Okay.
you're not.
it's just of pure jealousy. The first
just
story.
pure jealousy. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so then the second one, she's angry with her for breaking her promise of celibacy, and for also having this affair with Poseidon in the temple, in her temple. Well, then the final iteration of this myth is the well-known and the most intense version, is where Medusa is actually raped by Poseidon. And instead of punishing Poseidon, Athena punishes Medusa again, because, again, this happened in her temple. And so, those are the different versions of just that part of where the head of the Gorgon comes from. Now, Medusa reappears in the myth of Perseus. And that's why she is in the constellation Perseus. That's why the head of the Gorgon is there. All right. So the myth of Perseus is that Perseus's mother is Danae. And Danae's father receives word that his grandson is going to kill him. And so he locks Danae up so that no man can ever be with her and he'll never have a grandson. Crises averted. Well, it just so happens that Zeus turns himself into water and goes to this cellar where Danae is, and has sex with her, and then they have a baby, and this baby is Perseus. Well, Perseus and his mother are sent out so that they won't be killed by the king. Acrisius, I think, is his name. And so they go to this island, and this fisherman finds them out in the water, and he takes them to this place that he lives where his brother is the king. Well, the king of this island has the hots for Danae. And so he's like, I need to get rid of this kid, Perseus. He's just kind of in the way. She doesn't want me because the kid's in the way. So I'm going to send him on these missions. And so he sends him to go kill the Gorgon Medusa.
Okay.
Not thinking that he could do it. So he does. And then later he saves Andromeda with the head of Medusa. So he's just kind of using this as his weapon after he kills her.
Yeah.
So that's how she is in the constellation of Perseus. So yeah, those are kind of the myths behind Algol. If you want, I can move into the way that she is used, or the star is now used for Behenian.
I just want to add a little bit here.
Please.
I guess it's the transformation, we could use that word, of how Medusa's head was before and after. This is what I've read, is that when she was still Medusa, when she was still alive as Medusa, then her head is scary. We can say it's like nobody wants to be around it, because the moment you're there, you're turned to stone, right? So we kind of people were kind of avoiding it. But after her head was cut off, it was said, and maybe you can confirm this, that it was used for protection. It became this symbol of protection where people were just actually like holding her, like maybe Perseus was actually using it in protection in various different circumstances.
Yeah.
Something.
It's interesting because, of course, he used it to save Andromeda. He used it to save his mother from this, suitor.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's using it as kind of, in that way, protection, which does actually kind of lead us into the next part about how it can be used as talisman and protection. So, the Behenian fixed stars are 15 stars. Hermes Trismegistus has given them each an herb and a gemstone, under which, or using those, you can kind of cast spells. There's different spells that you can cast. So there's a list of 15 Behenian stars. I only found this out after searching into Algol, but that's the idea.
Basically, out of the, I don't know, many fixed stars, these are the selected 15 that are used most commonly in magic, basically.
So the Behenian stars, like Tan was saying, they're the particular 15 fixed stars and they're used in magic. And they each have a different symbol that goes with them. And they can be used, particularly this Algol can be used as a protection talisman, just like you're saying. You can imagine it though, because I was listening to Chris Warnock talk about this. He creates talismans, and or maybe he doesn't, and he just works with people's curse. Like he can tell when people are cursed using horary astrology, but he was mentioning Algol being used as a talisman for that. And he was even saying, like, in family relationships, people don't necessarily know that they're casting, you know, bad energy onto other people. So this is kind of like that evil eye protection. It's just kind of like this talisman that can protect you from it. Now, there's particular ways to create this talisman when it comes to Algol, because she is a variable star. And so you have to catch it at a certain time. You don't want to catch Algol when she's at her dimmest, is what I've read. So that's 20 minutes. Or 20 hours, I think she's at her dimmest. Maybe it is 20 minutes she's at her dimmest. Every 3 days, this cycle repeats. So yeah, there's timing. That's very important if you want to create this talisman. But the gemstone is diamond, and the plant is Helleborus niger, which is the Latin name, but it's called hellebore. It's also called, interestingly enough, it's called the Christmas rose. I can't believe I remember that. So yeah, those are the plants that you would use and the gemstone that you would use, and then you use that timing to create this talisman that's protection from the evil energy that people might inadvertently cast upon you.
Because I think a lot of people are just wondering right now when they're looking at their chart if they have planets that are conjunct to Algol or maybe opposite to Algol, like somewhere in Scorpio around 26 degrees, and they're kind of wondering, okay, what's going to happen in my life? How am I going to use this particular conjunction? Do you have anything you want to share with regards to that?
There's kind of references here. The significations can be things like losing your head. And that can, that doesn't necessarily have to be like physically losing your head, but going out of your mind. Those kinds of things are things to be aware of. I don't necessarily think that it's always going to be the case that you like lose your head every time something goes across Algol, but it is good to be consciously aware of if you have planets there, because the natal chart is really important when it comes to transits, because it's your planets, those positions that are going to be affected. So it's important to know, I think, where that placement is if you're interested in this kind of thing. But I would say, like, allow the mythology to kind of sink in, look into it deeper if that helps you, because there's different ways of understanding these stories. They evolve over time. It's going to be dependent on the culture and the context from which they were written that people are trying to understand the effects of the fixed star. So I think it's really important, if you're, concerned and feeling like this is a terrible placement, I can't have this, I'm going to lose my head, maybe think twice and look a little further to what those symbols might mean for you in your actual life.
Right. Yeah, I was just, trying to think of some like golden threads or something in common with the various different myths that you've mentioned.
Yeah.
And in all of the myths, it does seem that Medusa was, well, of course, she was very beautiful, but then we have this theme of she was worshiping, or because she was sort of worshiping Athena in a way, right? She was a what's the word? Apprentice, maybe, of Athena. We can even use that word. But then somehow in all of the myths, Athena sort of, I wouldn't necessarily use the word backstabbing, but she was not, I guess, the right person to worship, maybe, for Medusa for various different reasons, And so I was just wondering if there's this message here of, when you are being activated by Algol, that who are you devoted to? Like, who are you giving your power away to? And how are you allowing that person to influence your life? And what is your relationship with power? We can maybe look at it in that theme.
I like that a lot, because that's, the idea of losing your head can come from serving the wrong master, you could say, or serving the wrong teacher. So yeah, in this way, it seemed like maybe not backstabbing, but she definitely didn't seem like an advocate for her ultimately. Like in the end, she wasn't, um, unconditionally
Yeah.
working with her,
Right.
right? It's like,
Right.
actually, no.
Yeah, it was kind of like you have, you're my apprentice, you're my student, but I'm not on your side. It's a little bit of that feeling there. And, for whatever reason it is that she was not able to punish Poseidon, if anybody needed to be punished in this case, but for whatever reason that she couldn't punish Poseidon, maybe because he was a man or he had more power than her. So there's this like hierarchy even coming into play here of who's got the more power, who can do what, and how do they use that power. That's what I
Yeah.
feel there.
Yeah. And so, of course, themes of jealousy will come up too, perhaps. And yeah, that feeling of being betrayed or feeling like nobody's, got your back on things, like feeling like you're left out in the cold, those kinds of feelings might come up during those times.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I think the other thing I was thinking of was the transformation of the head of Medusa in general. And I
Yeah.
think there is a theme of transformation with like heavy Algol placements in your chart. If you have something like really conjunct there of I think this is my intuition here when I'm looking at these stories is when you are alive, before, because there's a lot of, famous people who do have planets that are conjunct Algol, and they are more so famous after they have died.
Yeah.
But what can you do while you're still alive to take your power, to own up to your transformation, to figure out this hierarchical theme in your life rather than letting that overtake you and then something happens, you become legendary after you die, but make use of the time that you have while you're still alive with regards to your power, because that's how I see Medusa and her story here, is that while she was alive she was giving that power away, but then she was cursed. Not to say that was right or wrong, or I don't know the situation there, but then she was cursed, and then she may have regretted that. And maybe when she was hiding away as Medusa, maybe she was like thinking, "Oh man, I should have, owned up to my power. I should have, done something, and this wouldn't have happened." So there's a bit of like this, oh, regret, or should I take revenge? But that doesn't have to happen if, she had stepped up to her power in the first place. So there was just something.
Yeah, I can totally see that too. I really love that you keep bringing up the fact that her head kind of becomes now the symbol of protection. So, yeah, that's that interesting idea of your wound, your greatest, deepest wound, being very transformative for you and actually being your greatest power ultimately.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. And I've heard a lot of astrologers out there, when they tell the story, they really put Medusa in this victim state. They really, if you have some planets conjunct to Algol, there's this theme of being a victim, right? But I don't think that's very helpful to put the message out there that you are a victim. But, I think the more productive message we can say is, how can you not be a victim? How can you step into your power, transform, and, work with your wound, like you said, and turn that into healing or protection?
Yeah, totally. Well, would you like to talk about
Yeah.
physical manifestation of this? And we didn't want to freak anybody out, but this is an interesting
Right.
connection that I made. So actually, there is this logo. Okay, so there's this logo, and this logo is for a
Which
very
most of you
famous,
have probably seen. Yeah, it's
very
probably very
famous
familiar.
brand. So when I reveal the name of this brand, you might be not necessarily surprised. Well, what is this? This is the head of Medusa. So upon further research, I looked into the man who created the brand Versace, Gianni Versace. And I'm always interested in how these, archetypes manifest in the physical realm. I feel like when you're, using the image of this entity, then you get a deep attachment with it. So I was like, why did he choose Medusa, the head of Medusa, for his brand? Well, I didn't get too far into figuring that out. I think they're a little bit vague about the actual reasoning. But what I did find interesting was the story of Gianni Versace's death. And it's that he was going to get his mail and someone shot him point blank in the head, which is interesting because we're talking about the head of the Gorgon, the head of
Mm.
Medusa. If he could have been shot anywhere, it's just interesting that he was shot in the head. But further, there is a gun brand that's called Taurus. And what do you know? That
It
was
was
the
the one
gun
that
that
was
the
used.
gunman used. So it's interesting, kind of a literal manifestation of that. I didn't see that there were too many transits happening with Algol. I don't really want to kind of describe his chart too much further. If you want to go look at his chart yourself, feel free. But just in the interest of not setting, not causing anybody any too much
Mm-hmm.
disturbance. I don't
I'm
want
just a
to
little
say
bit
too much.
curious as to
Yeah.
what's the story that you've read or heard of why he chose this symbol.
From what I understand, he just really liked mythology.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and I think there was something about her being this beautiful goddess, but it's interesting because
Right.
it's like there's so many beautiful goddesses you could have chosen. You choose the one that was turned into a gorgon. So interesting.
Right. Well, I have heard that Medusa is one of the most beautiful. Like she was even more beautiful than Venus, Aphrodite. So I'm just maybe that's why he decided to go for that
Yeah.
and maybe some of the darkness of it that he liked as well. Yeah, I was just curious because
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say if anybody has any comments, maybe if anybody could add to that, if anybody's interested in, high fashion or something like that, maybe they have some more insights.
Mm. So do you think there's something to do you intuitively feel there's something to this story, or do you think it's just like a coincidence? What do you think?
If my eyes led me to it during this research, I think it's very synchronistic that I would have found it. I
Mm.
don't necessarily believe in coincidences so much anymore. I think that when we get on our path, we start to notice synchronicities. And so for me, I was just like, this, I happened upon it. I did not go looking for Versace. It just so happened to pull up in my research. It may have been on the Wikipedia page or something like that. But
Right.
I think it's a little bit more interesting than just that's a coincidence.
Right. I mean, like what happened to him and the fact that he chose this symbol. So you think there's something there. What do you think
Well,
that could
there's
be?
like
Do you have any
correlation,
idea
there's
or you don't have?
causation.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely there could be a correlation here. Whether it was nefarious actors or just, this is how the universe unravels when you bring on the face of Medusa as your brand. I don't know. But for me, it feels like there could be something more conspiratorial here.
Mm, interesting. Yeah.
Or
I
at
like that
least I
you
like
use
to
the
lean
word
into,
conspiratorial because
yeah,
it's
I like to lean into conspiracy theories.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm not gonna I don't know. I mean, I don't even know where I'm going with this, but I was wondering if the I don't know who the person that shot him had some kind of wanted to create some kind of fame, um, or yeah, story and then fame because of this symbol, and maybe he knew about that, and then so, I don't know. But
Yeah, yeah, I wonder too. Maybe maybe somebody that was versed in astrology.
oh my God, we should not laugh about this.
I
This is
know.
not this is not
I
right.
feel so evil. It's just so bizarre. It's just so odd that's of all the ways that this man could have died, that's such an interesting correlation with the astrology.
Well, thank you for sharing that. For people out there who may be interested and want to research a little bit more into it. And I don't know if you wanted to share any of your personal experiences with having Venus conjunct Algol, because a lot of people out there might be wondering as well, because you have it personally. And to add, I do have my Venus close to Algol, but not necessarily conjunct. So it's about 28 degrees. And Algol is like 26, so it's about 2 degrees out. But I was wondering if you wanted to share, maybe if you felt there was something there for you.
Yeah, so I mean, it's hard because I have both. We talked about Black Moon Lilith last, and I have Black Moon Lilith in the seventh house. I have Algol in the 12th house on my Venus. So it's kind of hard to differentiate, I think, between the two for
Right.
me. But I do notice myself involved in relationships where there is jealousy as a component, whether that's like me being unknowingly involved in a love triangle, or I'm feeling the jealousy towards other women with my ex particularly.
Mm,
So that theme kind of came up a little bit. Also losing your head. So I will say that I feel like my 10-year relationship that I had was kind of me hypnotized, me serving this person.
right.
And just giving myself away and kind of losing my head, losing my own plans for my own life. I didn't necessarily like my whole life was kind of, well, wherever he goes, then I'll have to find something there. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's that part of kind of losing your head too.
Wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Because I was also thinking, like, so obviously, if my Venus is a little bit further away from Algol, because I can resonate with that experience of losing your head, but obviously mine was not 10 years, you know.
Yeah.
In the relationship where I was losing my head, that was probably just about 2 years, and then I came around, you know. But then that makes a lot of sense with the intensity of your Venus on Algol that would have lasted much longer, and you've been way deep into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And I'm just curious because we have this theme of either, you know, jealousy coming from somebody that you trusted, which was Athena on Medusa. I don't know if you can resonate with that, and coming from women or women that you
Mhm.
trusted. How do you feel
Yes,
about
unfortunately, I can relate with that. And so, just thinking that people had your back, people were supporting you. I think I've explained that after that whole breakup that I just got deserted. I mean, the people that I had just met, but also friends of mine that had been friends of both of ours. And it's not to say that they were flocking to him as a friend now, it's not like they're best buds with him, but that it did seem like, well, I can tell you, one of the girls actually went to my ex after we had broken up, and told him that I was engaged, which I was because I was out of my mind, to a guy up in Canada.
it?
But so this was a friend that I had been living with. I had been living in her home, and she knew he had been abusive to me in the past because I had told her. And so this girl decided to go tell my ex that I was engaged and got left at the altar, essentially, because that guy ghosted me. But yeah, and this was somebody that, had actually called me crazy to my face, before she kicked
Mm,
me out. So it was a trying time in my life. And so, yeah, that was a very trying time in my life. It just so happened to be when the nodes were kind of moving into Taurus, Scorpio, too. So it makes a lot of sense, that
mm,
would kind of happen. But yeah,
right,
definitely have
right.
experienced it
The
firsthand.
notes would have been like on Algol, basically, around there. And, you know, on the more maybe positive end of things, with regards to transformation and using some of your wounds as a symbol of protection, I don't know if you have
Mhm.
any of those experiences or resonate with that.
Hmm. I don't know if I'm, I don't know if I like wonder if I don't know if I'm there yet, to be able to use that because I'm still kind of in this state of getting bamboozled. And I think I'm still kind of um, navigating how
Getting
to
your
work,
head back, maybe.
getting my head back. Yeah, exactly. I'm still trying to get my head back. So haven't quite figured out too much on how to navigate it, personally. Interested if anybody wants to go in the comments and provide me with some advice. But for now, I just kind of stopped focusing on relationships and partnerships and love. And I really focused on our, group, with Tan Astrology and other projects that I'm working with. It just, my creativity is how I'm focusing this Algol placement is. I've got fun creative projects that I'm working on and they're, beauty happening behind the scenes, but not love. Like I'm gonna do the single thing for a while and just get my head back and keep my head.
Self-love, maybe, is what
Self-love.
you're,
Yeah.
yeah. That is actually very powerful and very beautiful as well. What you're mentioning here, I think it's, yeah, it's like that power. I think just I don't know, people with maybe you have something conjunct alcohol. I think it's just very powerful, especially as a person who identifies as being a woman. I think there's just a lot of power there, and you're probably getting your head back and accessing those powers and seeing where you can finally go with this freedom that you now have that you didn't have for 10 years, you know?
Yeah.
Mm.
And, I think it's really important for me to have found such good feminine energy to exchange with and really to learn from. And, you know, all of you on the team are in a relationship. So it's an interesting thing that I'm like, the single one, but then I do have another group of women where they're all single. And so it's just nice to be with women that I trust. Or just around feminine
Yeah.
energy in general, because it's much more open, it's much more receptive. And especially if you're not in this kind of like competitive masculine energy of we have to fight each other because we're fighting over resources or whatever it is, it just feels good to not be in competition with the feminine energy that I'm surrounded by.
Yeah, I think that's super important and valuable to have supportive women supporting women,
Mm-hmm.
in that case, because that really, it's just women can do so much when they come together and, be that foundation for each other. And I think people in general really, we're just
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
together and just really supporting each other and being there in a unconditional way without all the jealousy and all the envy and power
Mm-hmm.
struggles and things. Yeah,
Totally.
I
Couldn't
love
agree
it.
more.
All right. Well, then I think that's it for today. Thank you, Sarah. And if you guys have any questions for Sarah, anything you want to share, just leave them in the comments below. And of course, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button if you haven't. And if you're interested in getting a reading from Sarah, then head over to our website. She does birth chart readings, amazing, wonderful astrologer. And of course, if you're interested in getting a gift card for your loved ones this holiday season, then head over to my website, get more information there as well, because it is for a limited time only. So it will be available until the end of the year. And that's it. So we'll see you guys soon in another video. Have a lovely holiday. Bye.